Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome to our Zikr this evening. Our themes for today started out being all about peace and about the ways that we, through our spiritual practices, might try to invite more peace into our own experience and into the world, which we all talk about all the time. It's a very easy thing to focus on. Do we all want peace? Yes. Do we all want to experience peace? Yes. Do we want to see it everywhere in the world? Yes. Why aren't we doing it? I don't know. Today, I started thinking somehow the great mother God failed to teach all of her children to play nicely and not to hurt each other and not to take each other's toys and not to punch each other and not to whatever, all the things. Like that's the mom's job. It's the dad. It's the parents' job. But today, for me, it was the idea of the mother God that is supposed to teach the children to play nice, to be respectful, to be tolerant, to be kind. And then while I was looking at that theme for this evening, I learned that Murshida Khadija died Thursday night. And Khadija Julia Goforth is her Mughal name. What a gorgeous name. I love the name Goforth. And Khadija had been a Murshida, one of the senior teachers in the Sufi Ruhaniyat for I don't know how many years, maybe 30 years that she was a Murshida, something like that, at least 20, because there's the photo of Moinuddin initiating her as a Murshid. And he died 20 years ago, so more than that. She was also a Siraj, which is one of the senior teachers that does training and ordaining of shirags, of ministers in our Sufi lineage. And up until last week, she was organizing collaborative universal worship services with a whole lot of shirags and teachers that were representing the different faith traditions. And so her dedicated service and devotion and engagement with this path and with the ideals of spiritual liberty and universality continued on to her last breath. So we know that she had some serious health challenges in the last few years. And at the same time, there was no expectation that she would be gone this week. And this is how it goes. It's an important reminder for all of us that we don't know what time we have, and let's continue being of service in whatever ways we can throughout every moment of our lives, every day, every night. This is the chance we've got. Let's take it and seize it and use it to the fullest. So we'll be doing the invocation in a way that honors Murshida Khadija, and I'll be weaving in a couple of things to our evening program so that we can just tune into some of the feisty joy and creativity and sincerity that she brought to the path and that she invited others into. So we're because we have our friend Sahaja with us tonight, we'll start with the invocation in Arabic, but then we're going to say it a few times in English with a little dose of Murshida Khadija in the mix. So I'm putting the Arabic invocation in the chat window, and you're welcome to do your best to say it along with us if you wish. Are you ready? Yeah. والوئام والجمال الوجود الوحيد متحد مع كل الأرواح المنيرة الذي يشكل تجسيد السيد روح الهدى آمين. I expect all of you know the invocation in English, and I think Murshida Khadija might say that, do any of us really know it? And let's see if we can invite ourselves into it more and more. So I'm putting it in the chat window for you in case you need the written words for it, but we know that the written words are just the representation, that really we want to be speaking it to and from and impressing it into our hearts and our spirit awareness each time. Here we go. Toward the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of Guidance. Okay, And now Murshida Khadija might say, all right, hello, dear friend. Please turn to someone else in another Zoom window next to you and say, hey, friend, where are you going? And the answer is toward the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the master, the spirit of guidance. Oh, turn to someone else in another Zoom chat window, someone else next to you in the room, and say something like, oh, hello, my darling, my dear. What is your purpose? Why are you here? And the answer is toward the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the master, the spirit of guidance. And then you might turn to someone else and say, oh, hello, fellow seeker of the one. What does your heart say? What does your heart say? Toward the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the master, the spirit of guidance. And then one more time, we'll say, what do you think, my darlings, is the secret in the dervish's sleeve? Toward the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the master, the spirit of guidance. Amen, amen, amen. You know, anything you can do to keep the prayers living, do it. Okay, so I think y'all know all the words to all the things all the time. And I still sometimes like to put them in the window for you to help you along. This time we're going to start with, of course, where else would we start? Bismillah, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. We'll sing that several times and then we'll weave in the Zikr phrase of La ilaha illallah. And then at some point, I think that we are going to just pause and transition into something different that will include that same Zikr phrase along with Assalamu alaikum, alaikum assalam. So Bismillah, we begin in the name, in the atmosphere, in the remembrance of the one, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, infinite ever-flowing mercy and compassion. La ilaha illallah. There is nothing except the one. Everything that ever has been, is now, or will be is all part of the one being. We're looking for rainbows out here. And then Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum assalam is a greeting and a blessing of peace, saying peace be with you. And then in reverse, and with you, peace. So I have to remember which one we're doing. Bismillah, Bismillah, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillah, Bismillah, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillah, Bismillah. As a call and response. So you can either sing the initial blessing for peace or the reflective blessing for peace. They mean the same thing. And I'm pretty sure that Rahima knows it very well. So if I sing the first part, she'll probably sing the second one, but we'll see what happens over here. We usually play pretty harmoniously together. So we'll sing either Assalamu alaikum or wa alaikum assalam, and after we do a couple of those back and forth, we'll do the zikr phrase of La ilaha illallah. And this one was deliberately designed as a healing blessing of peace between any aspects of duality or separation or perceived differences. So it can be extended between men and women, or between human and non-human, or between different nations, or just people across the street. It could be between us and our next door neighbors, between us and our siblings. Our friend Bill is waving across the street here. Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum assalam. Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum assalam. Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum assalam. Assalamu Do you know how many different places in the message volumes and the Gothikas, Murshid, Piro Murshid Inayat Khan, when I say Murshid, I just mean Inayat Khan, talks about how the whole human race is like one body. And if any part of that body is in pain, you cannot say that the body is free from pain. And that any part of the body that is hurting will eventually affect the entire body. Everything, every being experiences the suffering if any being is experiencing suffering. Do you believe that? Like, can you hear that and go like, yeah, that's true. It's so true. Why can't we just be nice? Huh? Kiri, why? Okay. So I brought some prayers for you. What's that?
Talk to your cat.
Talk to my cat. I know. Not doing a good job trading him, am I? Okay. So I brought a couple of different prayers for peace, and these are both prayers from Murshid, and we're going to do one of them now, and then we'll do another one later. And I'm going to put it in the chat window for you, so that we can say it together. So this one, he said, is the prayer for peace of the world. The prayer for peace of the world. All right. I think that all of it went into the chat window, so you can recite it along with us if you wish. And if you don't want to read it, you're welcome to just listen. And those of us who are in this room will say it together. And so just, you know, it's never about the words, right? The words are the symbolic outer expression that we hope can carry the atmosphere of our hearts and our soul's intentions. And the words are a good vessel for carrying our intentions. So see if we can attune to the essence and the energy and the power, the magnetism that Murshid would have put into shaping these words to carry these intentions for each of us to attune to. So when we recite this, we're not just reading the post-it note that I put on the grocery list today, right? This is a prayer that Murshid put in writing 100 years ago, and that is still just as relevant today. Okay, so we'll read through it together, and we'll go slowly enough. You can join in with us if you wish. O thou, the almighty sun, whose light cleareth away all clouds, we take refuge in thee, King of all men, sovereign of all beings, God of all deities, Lord of all angels. We pray thee, dispel the mist of illusion from the hearts of the nations, and lift their lives by thy all-sufficient power. Pour upon them thy limitless love, thy ever-shining light, thy everlasting life, thy heavenly joy, and thy perfect peace. Amen. I'd like to go through it again, and this time I'll just say it myself so that we can allow a lot of space after each of these lines to just breathe into it a little bit. You're welcome to just read along, but I'm probably not going to go at a normal, consistent pace. But I'd like to just rest in it a little more to be able to bring our whole selves to it, so you don't have to worry about reading or keeping up with the words. You can just feel it and bring your heart into it a little more. Hopefully. O thou, the almighty sun, whose light cleareth away all clouds. We take refuge in thee, King of all men, sovereign of all beings, God of all deities, Lord of all angels. we pray thee, dispel the mist of illusion from the hearts of the nations, and lift their lives by thy all-sufficient power. Pour upon them thy limitless love. Thy ever-shining light. Thy everlasting life. Thy heavenly joy. And thy perfect peace. Amen. You know what Murshid would say is the most important thing? Optimism. Optimism. Without optimism, nothing ever happens. Without optimism, life doesn't happen. Without optimism, we don't breathe, our hearts don't beat, we don't learn anything, we don't speak, we don't take any action. Every single thing that has ever happened and will ever happen is based on the spirit of optimism. Okay, yeah, black tea. Do you need a drink of whatever tasty beverage you have in your hands over there? We're gonna sing some more. I want to bop through and say hello to friends that I didn't get to greet earlier. Oh, hello, Theo. What a happy treat to see you, friend. Hello, Theo. Hello, Miriam. Hello, Hetty. Hello, Josh. I'm not sure who Josh Moses is, but that sounds like an important name. I'm guessing you're a very important person. Hello, Josh. I think that I greeted everyone else that I'm seeing on here already. Oh, hello, Jax, and probably Yoda. Oh, hello, Baraka. Oh, hello, Kalimullah, and probably Asim, who I don't see right now, and hello, Rahmana. Okay, beautiful friends. If I didn't greet you by name, I apologize. I feel like I've gotten everybody. Okay, so the spirit of optimism is contingent on light. So all of these things, all of our intentions happen in the light of our own awareness, in the light of God's awareness. And so we'll be singing Nur Allah, Nur Allah. Nur is one of the beautiful names of God that means light. And it feels important to me to keep coming back to this idea that the Nur, the light that we're talking about, is not a dead light. It is a living light that is warm and active and intelligent. It is compared to intelligence itself. So it is sometimes said to be like the light of understanding, the light of knowledge, the light that enables you to be able to perceive anything. So, and back to Murshid, because he's my hero. He also talks about Nur coming from everything. Everything that you perceive, it isn't just because of the light that bounces off of it, it's also because of the light that shines out from it, from every inanimate object, from everything in existence. A light shines. Okay, so we'll sing Nur Allah, Nur Allah, Nur Allah, Nur. Those are the only words. I think that we're in good shape for lyrics. What else would we need? Nur Allah, 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 Nur. I wore white this evening in honor of Murshida Khadija. It was very important to her, especially for Shirags, especially for any universal worship, white. And I was speaking with another Sufi friend who had helped with the universal worship service that Khadija was orchestrating, and Khadija gifted everyone a white scarf afterward. So it's part of the thing. Ganur. All right, I want to tell you a few standout things about Murshida, Siraj, Khadija, Julia, go forth. She had many other names as well. I didn't know her very well. I had met her at a couple of Jamiat Khas retreats. Those are the leader retreats in the Sufi Ruhaniyat. And in return, you can see more people than just me because you've been looking at me all night. So there's a story that Murshida Khadija told a lot going back to her very early days when she was in her 20s, and she had just found the Sufis, and she spelled it with 2 O's, Soofies, Sufis. And she didn't know any other way to spell it. And she was just starting to lead the dances, and she had been asked to lead dances for some kind of a reception, some kind of a gathering. And she said, yeah, I lead the dances, I can do that. And she was expecting it to be like 20, 30 people. And she said that as she was going up to the building where she was going to be leading these dances, it was like 200 people, like a huge group of people, and that she felt immediately nauseous, and that she had overstated her qualifications, and she was not up to task. And so she said that she started to turn and walk away, and was imagining how she could call these people and say, I'm sorry, I've died, and or something, like get out of this situation. And then she started scolding herself and going, no, this is, you said you were going to do this and you have to follow through with this. So she forced herself to turn around and start walking back to the building. And she said that as she was walking back to the building, that she felt her walk change and become more confident, more determined, more relaxed. The sickness fell away. And she realized that Murshid Sam had shown up and taken over her body so that she could just go and do this thing. And Murshid Sam was no longer alive at this time, but she just felt that he showed up to help her. And she said to this day, she doesn't even remember how it went. It must have been fine, but it was like she wasn't even there. And it continued throughout her life. Like she was still telling this story the last time I saw her in person at the Jamiat Khas in 2019. And she was still telling this story like it was the greatest lesson to her about getting out of the way and just letting the teachers who know what is happening come in and do their thing. And if we are doing our job, we just stay out of the way so that the work can happen, so God can happen. So I think that's an excellent story. Thought I'd share it with you. You've probably heard it before. If you know her at all, you've probably been with her for that. Okay, so there's another thing that she spoke about. And she split her time for many years. Not at the end, she was just living full time in Seattle, but for a lot of years, she was splitting her life rhythms between Seattle and New York City. And she talked about being in New York City in particular because it was a very diverse culture, and that she would look at her daily visit to the park as a universal worship service, as an opportunity to see each person that was going by and to greet them and to to welcome them in their own language and to acknowledge their background, their culture, their religious traditions. And she loved greeting people and assessing, like, oh, I think that these people are Jewish, so when they're coming by, I'm going to say shalom. And these people look like they're maybe Arabic, so I'll say salam alaikum. And these people look like maybe they're something else. And so she would just greet each person in a different way that she felt was most likely honoring their root traditions and what would feel most comfortable for them. And it felt like a way of really honoring and offering respect and acknowledgement to all of the different forms of humanity and the divine. Okay. There's in our Siraj work, because we were together in the Siraj circle for the last 2 years, and that's the senior minister circle in the Sufi Ruhaniyat. And she did tremendous work in facilitating, holding, teaching the universal worship service. But she came back again and again to this story at the Mendocino camp when she was in a meal line ready to go get food and complaining about the universal worship service and talking to Wali Ali, Murshid Wali Ali, and saying the universal worship service is so boring. It is so dry and there's no life in it. And she didn't want to do it anymore. And he, I don't know if he actually yelled at her, but she felt it as a yelling at her and said, well, how does the universe worship? And she heard that question as a blast in her heart that just bowled her over. And she carried that question through the rest of her life, going, how does the universe worship? Because really, the way that we can attune to the whole universe, worshiping and praising God, is where we can find the absolute, irrefutable, living, energized presence in the universal worship service. So that's a repeated question that she kept bringing back. And I think we'll all be offering it to each other for the rest of our lives. Well, my friends, how does the universe worship? Okay. Let's see. Okay. I think that's all that I would like to tell you about that, other than, here's the last thing, and then we're going to go back to music. In the last week, the 100-year anniversary of the Universal Worship Service happened. That was May 7th. And Murshida Khadija was part of coordinating a universal worship with a lot of shirags. I think I saw maybe a dozen different shirags that were listed on the flyer and the poster, which she sent out top secret to our Siraj circle ahead of time and said, don't share this with anyone. It's not going to be public until after we do the service, but you guys get to see this, because she was excited to share it. And it was so beautiful. And this is the quote from Piro Murshida Khan that she put on the top of the flyer. And if any of you want the flyer, I'm happy to forward it to you. You'll have to send me a personal message and I'll send it to you. It's a lovely flyer. This is from Hazrat Piro Murshida Khan. The Sufi's God is the only being that exists. The Sufi's teacher is the spirit of inner guidance. The Sufi's holy book is the manuscript of nature. The Sufi's community is the whole of humanity. The Sufi's religion is love. There is no God of any people who is not the Sufi's God. No spiritual teacher of any creed who is not the Sufi's teacher. There is no sacred scripture that the Sufi does not accept. Since the Sufi is the worshiper of light and the follower of love, and yet is free from all the world's distinctions and differences. Would you like to hear it again? I like to read things twice. I think it's useful. The first time just like gives us a heads up about what's coming. And the second time we can kind of settle into it a little. Here it is again. I didn't see if you want to hear it again, but I'm going to read it again. Okay. The Sufi's God is the only being that exists. The Sufi's teacher is the spirit of inner guidance. The Sufi's holy book is the manuscript of nature. The Sufi's community is the whole of humanity. The Sufi's religion is love. There is no God of any people who is not the Sufi's God. No spiritual teacher of any creed who is not the Sufi's teacher. There is no sacred scripture that the Sufi does not accept, since the Sufi is the worshiper of light and the follower of love, and yet is free from all the world's distinctions and differences. And while this is a quote from Piro Murshida Khan, it really speaks to the essence and the ongoing teachings and dedication and purpose that Murshida Khadija carried through her whole life. That she chose this passage to put on the top of the flyer for the Universal Worship Service. And I am so delighted that she was still in her body for that service 100 years later. I just imagine that would have given her soul such delight to take on the journey onward. Okay, so those of you who are in the room right now, I think I included that passage on one of those pieces of paper, so you have it with you to take home if you want it. It's okay, you'll have it with you. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, so we're gonna do the rose dance. This is an original Murshid Sam dance. So the melody is very simple, but it has 4 different simple phases. And this is one of the dances that I had the joy of doing with Khadija's leadership at a couple of the Jamiat Khas retreats. So we'll start with the very traditional, typical, expected Murshid Sam melody while we're singing Allah, 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 Allah. We'll do 4 of those, and then we'll sing El Allahu like this. El Allahu, El Allahu. We'll do, I think, 2 of those, and then we'll change to Allahu, Allahu, and then hu, 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 before we start over again. All right, the words are in the chat window because I know you're going to need them. And no, you won't need them at all, but there they are anyway. And I'm going to get my guitar. And this does work as a canon. So this is, when I've done it with Murshida Khadija, we've had 4 circles. And so the first circle, like everybody can start together. And then the first circle moves to the second part. And then the second circle goes to the second part. And so it echoes out as a canon. So because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 people in this, there are 5 of us in this room, we can get the canon going if you wish. And those of you at home in Zoom land are welcome to sing any parts of it you wish. We're going to start with at least 10 Allah, 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 Allah. And the invitation is just to feel this as a blossoming of God presence that is so simple and all inclusive, all encompassing. Okay, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? All right, here we go. Allah, Allah. Ya Shakur. Ya Shakur.
Did you come from Rose Zikr?
Yeah, it's called the Rose Dance.
Rose Dance.
Yeah, because when you're doing it as the echoing movements, it's like a big blossoming flower with a big group of people. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Theo just posted a beautiful message in the chat window. Theo, are you okay if I read it aloud for people who can't? No, who can't? Well, I mean, like not everyone has their chat window on. Oh, I don't know if Theo is still on here. Well, since Theo posted it to everyone, I'll read it aloud and hope that's okay. Am the person I am now because of her, without doubt. She touched so many lives so deeply, including mine. I'm sending my love to all who are grieving her death. Thank you, Theo. Okay, beautiful friends. Another sip of tea and then another song. Are you ready? Okay, I will put the words for the next one in the window. I did for the last one too, even though, hold on a minute, because I'll need that one. A moment while I give Kiri the thing that she wants. There you go. You can have that whole page if you want. Okay. So the words for this next one come from the Quran, from Surah Al-Ikhlas. It's not the whole surah, but it's part of it. We'll say, oh, autocorrect. It's so fun when I'm trying to write the phonetic pronunciations of Arabic. It's like, we think we know what you mean. No, you really don't know what I mean. So we'll say, Qulhu Allahu Ahad. So I did it again. Qulhu Allahu Samad. And then the Zikr phrase, La ilaha illallah. Who, and there's a very nice who at the end. So for Qul hu, this would usually be translated as say who, or like, so put this name, this essence, this reference in your mouth. Qul hu, Allahu is God, is the all. It's the all-pervading essence of God. Every time we say the name Allah as God, the who is at the end, whether we enunciate it or not, but it's inferred all the time. Here we actually pronounce it Allahu. And then Ahad and Samad are two of the beautiful names of God. Ahad is the one that is beyond definition, beyond form. It is the all-inclusive one. And then Samad is sometimes said to be the eternal, or it's also the all-sufficient. So it has the sense of whatever it is that is needed, God is that. God is always providing for every need. And so it's a beautiful remedy for any sense of lack, or what's that ridiculous human concept called? Starvation economy. That ridiculous human concept. Like, clearly, it's clear to me that because this beautiful earth mama and this infinite light and life energy of the sun is happening all the time, any life form that arises within that context belongs there and is provided for. And we're part of the system. So if we're paying attention, there's plenty. And we just need to recognize it and pay better attention. That's my soapbox for today. Well, it's one of them. I have a lot of soapboxes today. So we'll say, Qulhu Allahu Ahad, Ahad. Qulhu Allahu Samad, Samad. La ilaha illallah. Who. Okay. Let's see. Qul huwallahu ahad, ahad. Qul huwallahu samad, samad. Qul huwallahu ahad, ahad. Qul huwallahu samad, samad. Thank you, Farhad. That's another Farhad composition. He's just an endless stream of inspiration and beauty. I'm trading out my guitar. I'll be right with you. And I started the ceiling fan moving with my guitar. Okay. Okay. I know, I've been sighing like that a lot. So we're going to start, I put them in there in the opposite order. I apologize about that. We're going to start with an Ishkala Mabud Allah. That is, God is present in and is the essence of all aspects of love. God is the love. God is the beloved. God is the activity of loving and the essence of love itself. And so Ishq Allah, Mabud Allah. And then astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. And astaghfirullah, we usually hear translated as asking for the forgiveness of God. And anytime we are looking at prayers for peace, for understanding, for dissolving differences and adamant righteousness, we want to dissolve adamant righteousness. And the qualities of forgiveness are the softening aspects that are necessary for opening the heart, for noticing what it is that keeps our kindness and love from flowing, and working to dissolve those obstacles. Astaghfirullah. Okay. Ishkalama Budala, Ishkalama Budala, Ishkalama Budala, Oh, beautiful friends. We're on the home stretch. We've got about 15 minutes left. We have a prayer, a song, and a closing prayer. Are you ready for it? All right. I see Taliesin nodding. So I guess we're all ready. Oh, I saw Anne nodding too. Hi, Anne.
Hey, Ann.
Oh, hi, Ashera. Hi, Hetty. Okay. So this one is another of Murshid's prayers for peace. This one is just called the prayer for peace. And I'll put it in the chat window for you again. And those of you who we're so blessed to have in our home this evening, you have the printed pages for you. So I don't need to give you all those instructions again, right? Like, yes, we can just say the words, but we're going to have a greater impact on our own hearts and on the atmosphere of the world. And we make a greater impression on the ears of God if we put our hearts in it, right? Yeah, Mujib. Was that last week's name of God?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Ready? Send us thy peace, O Lord, which is perfect and everlasting, that our souls may radiate peace. Send us thy peace, O Lord, that we may think, act, and speak harmoniously. Send us thy peace, O Lord, that we may be contented and thankful for thy bountiful gifts. Send us thy peace, O Lord, that amidst our worldly strife, we may enjoy thy bliss. Send us thy peace, O Lord, that we may endure all and tolerate all in the thought of thy grace and mercy. Send us thy peace, O Lord, that our lives may become a divine vision, and in thy light all darkness may vanish. Send us thy peace, O Lord, our Father and Mother, that we, thy children on earth, may all unite in one family. Okay. I think that our final ditty for this evening might be the best known melody, Zikr, Dance of Universal Peace, prayer in the history of the world. Okay, well, next to the Kalama. Next to the Kalama. All right. All right. You want to be able to see Rahima and Sahaj over here too, right? Okay, so Maitreya, I'm so happy you're here. We're going to do Almighty Peace, which we could have Maitreya do it. Maitreya, do you want to? No, I'm going to do it. Maybe Maitreya, if you wanted to unmute yourself so you can scold me and correct me and tell me to do it more slowly, you're welcome to do that. So Maitreya is the composer of this melody. We'll sing Allahu Akbar. We'll sing it 3 times and then Ya Salam. Because Murshid Sam, who we all know and love, heard, he didn't just come up with this, and it wasn't his interpretation. He heard this as a translation for Allahu Akbar, that is, God is peace. There's power in peace. So while Allahu Akbar is an indication of all of the power and might, all of the strength, all the capacity that ever was, it all belongs to God. Yes, this is true. That means that the peace that is everlasting, that always has been, is now, and always will be, is all part of God's power. So it's not that we need to make peace happen, it's that we just need to get out of the way. Yeah, Salam is the invocation of this beautiful name of God that means peace. Allah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And before we say the prayer Khatum together, let's offer 11 Yas Salamos to Murshida Khadija in the journey of her soul. So when we recite Yas Salam, we're calling forth peace. And when we're offering blessings to a liberated soul that is already winging its way back into the arms of the beloved, we add an O at the end that just opens up this continual blessing stream into the unseen. Ya Salamu, 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 Ya Salamu. I'll put the prayer khatum in the chat window for you. Or if you're in the room, you have a written paper with it. Is that true? Yeah. Do you need one? Do you need one? O thou, who art the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the Lord of heaven and earth, open our hearts that we may hear thy voice, which constantly cometh from within. Disclose to us thy divine light, which is hidden in our souls, that we may know and understand life better. Most merciful and compassionate God, give us thy great goodness. Teach us thy loving forgiveness. Raise us above the distinctions and differences which divide. Send us the peace of thy divine Spirit, and unite us all in thy perfect being.